President Trump's Platinum Plan. Basically, President Trump's promise to Black America over 4 years. I'm interested to know your thoughts. I'm going to go over the details. I might put a little side by side showing what it is that I'm reading just so you can have it. And based on how I'm positioning, I might have to throw it about right there. But if not, I'm going to read it verbatim. It's kind of small, so you're going to see me looking out. But the Platinum Plan proposed by President Trump. I'm interested to know your thoughts because I know when this conversation comes up, we have a lot of swayed views, which is great because that means you're thinking, you're using your intellect. If you're talking about it, hopefully you're thinking about what you're saying before you say what it is that you just thought. Catch that. But President Trump's Platinum Plan for Black America. Now, here are the pillars. Number one is supposed to provide opportunity. Basically, by achieving historic employment levels for Black Americans as well as increasing access to capital for new businesses, President Trump has been committed to ensuring all Black Americans can achieve the American dream. That's pillar number one. Pillar number two, security. By signing into law the celebrated First Step Act, President Trump has brought common sense criminal justice reform to the American people for the first time in decades, while ensuring that our streets and communities are safe for families and business owners. Pillar number three, prosperity. As the first president to promote long-term funding to historically Black colleges and universities, this administration continues to seek immediate and generational advancement for Black Americans. Pillar number four, fairness. As demonstrated through the actions to initiate investment into our opportunity zones, as well as address health disparities, wage gaps, and necessary education reforms, President Trump works every day to advance a fair and just America for Black communities. Now, before I dive in deep on the other things that are in the list, I want to speak on this because I was looking at a comment and somebody said something along the lines of, not on my page, but somewhere else. They said something along the lines of, why is he just doing this now? He should have been put this together if, he wanted the Black vote. Had he put something like this together prior to now, then he probably would have earned the Black vote by now. That's something somebody said. Now, I can honestly say, I've been doing some digging over the past couple of weeks because I'm like, there's no way this time I'm just going to vote emotionally as it relates to for president and any other slots. This ain't just limited to the president. So we need to get astute and figure out different ways to make sure when we go to them polls, we got a checklist and we know exactly who we voting for all across the board. This ain't the opportunity to just check down on one side. We've been doing that for too long, and we don't need to do that again. Now, I have been doing my homework, doing my digging. So for the person who made that comment, why is it just now taking place? Some of the stuff that's on this Platinum Plan is stuff that's already being done. It's already in the works and was already in the works before we was even talking about presidential campaigns. 2 years ago, some of this stuff was in the works. So I can say that. I can give him that as it relates to sticking to his words and commitments on some of those things because some of this stuff was already in the works. It's just new to everybody else, so they feel like he just proposed these things. Hence the Second Step Act. When he talked about the Second Step Act, that's basically releasing some of the people who were incarcerated due to certain petty crimes. I mean, people had life, for a bag of weed. I mean, like simple stuff. That might not be an exact example, but crazy stuff. But the First Step Act implemented something that allowed a certain amount of people to get out. I believe it was over 3,000. The number might be higher now. Over 3,000 people were able to get out. And this is rare. And you can take emotions out of this one because we just got to look at data. Just look at data. Take emotions out of the presidential campaign. Take emotions out of the comments. Take emotions out of this video. But the data says that of those 3,000 plus who got out of jail, who were incarcerated for petty crimes, over 90% were Black. Now, we know that a great deal of Blacks get locked up and the penalties that they face are more harsh than most. But for something to pass that actually benefited over 90% of Blacks is rare. That's rare that happens. I mean, just be honest. Most of the time they try to pass laws and it fits everybody who's a minority. Well, when you're talking about who's a minority, it's people who not even black who fighting harder for their minority benefit than you are. That's all different nationalities claiming to be minorities. Everybody other than whites claiming to be minorities. And then I take that back because women have eased up in there, white women have eased up into claiming minorities as well. So that's a whole nother conversation. So for something to benefit over 90% black is rare. That's not emotion, that's just the data. So that's that. And then as far as the contributing to the historically black colleges, that was already happening. So that's not a new thing. Uh, as far as the jobs being lower or the unemployment being lower, that was already being implemented prior to the pandemic. A lot of things were booming. Had this not happened, people wouldn't even realize how good the economy was doing unless they was paying attention or unless they're investing, which you should be investing into the market or into different things you wouldn't even know. And then with the Opportunity Act, that was one of the first, the opportunity zones. With the opportunity zone, basically, that's a form of investing into real estate. It was a law that passed for investors who had a certain amount of income that can take some of the money that was in investments and pour it into opportunity zones without paying a penalty, and it allowed them certain tax breaks if they upgraded that area and they held on to the property for 10 plus years. It's a lot of different stipulations, but basically when they did that, it positions people to create a lot of wealth 10 years from now. That was already in place. Now, I will say this. It's another form of gentrification as it relates to the opportunity zones, but gentrification is not a bad thing. The problem is we're just not educated enough in most cases that we don't participate in gentrifying our own neighborhoods. We should be looking around, seeing what areas we can make look better. There's no reason why areas should be crumbling and falling. Everybody should be living to a certain standard. Period. So gentrification is not a bad thing. The only bad thing is when we don't have ownership in our own area, but we claim it as our hood. That's the bad thing. So now somebody with money benefits by investing into an opportunity zone, and they get all of these tax perks, all of these, all of this return on rate of return, or return, the return of interest. Basically, when they invest into the property, the equity that it grows to, they get all of these rates of return because they were more equipped and we wasn't. So I will say that gentrification is not a bad thing, but some of us were in position, and some of us were not. And that's on us, not on anybody else. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. It's a lot of things that hindered us and have blacks behind to this point. Yes, reparations are definitely, if they were to calculate that, it was in the trillions. If you're interested in knowing numbers about reparations, I highly encourage you looking into this book by the name of The Black Tax. Brother broke it down very eloquently, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about him just yet. But look up The Black Tax if you're interested in like reparations and what that would calculate up to, black or white. No matter who you are watching this video, if you understand the black tax, what this gentleman is talking about in this video, then you will understand the power in that. But nonetheless, I digress. The opportunity zone was something that was in place, so it's not something he's just springing up. This is stuff that was already in place, so they just addressed it. They're coming. Now, I'm gonna run through these because I already said a decent amount of what I wanted to say. Oh, on the education tip, said he wanted to enhance education. One of the things that he also put in place was school choice. School choice, or he signed on, was school choice. With school choice, what that does is allow parents to choose where they want their children to go to school. Now, that's beneficial to blacks because most schools are paid for by property taxes. People who have a higher priced home wind up paying higher property taxes. So if a home buyer pays higher property taxes, then it's a good chance that their school is going to be better because they have higher funds to pull from. So what happens is, if you're living in a certain area and you might be renting or you might be paying low property tax, you were once forced to go to a school that's nearby just based on the fact that you live in this area. So most of the time you go to schools that, wasn't up to par in terms of educational because the teachers wasn't making as much as they could have, so they wasn't giving their all in some cases, not all, some cases. So it just varied. Now, school choice, what that allows is for people to choose where they want to go to school, and by choice, you'll be able to position yourself to have a higher quality school that's centered around the things, the principles that you want your child to learn. That's a big deal because who doesn't like that is usually people who have been putting their kids in private school and don't want their kids to go to public school or school with blacks, to say the least, because sometimes that's the case. That's who don't like that. So that benefits us more than you think. Now, I'm just going off stats. I ain't going off none emotional because I took my emotions out of the campaign. And when I started laying out the data, I was like, oh, well, it is what it is. I'm just laying out the data. And I encourage you to not take my word on none of this. I want you to do your own due diligence and say, okay, what has a person done? Don't base it off what they said. So you shouldn't base the campaign off of what this said. This is supposed to be futuristic, what a person says they're going to do. But I'm here to tell you some of this stuff was already being done. So this can be added onto the track record of the history of what a person has done. So you got to look at both parties. What have you done historically? Has it been beneficial to me or my people in general? Because typically a person isn't affected directly or doesn't feel like it directly by the president. But you got to look at their track record. And if you look up what Trump has done and just certain things in the Republican Party in general, and if you look at some of the things that Joe and Kamala has done, you might be surprised. So I'm gonna let you do your own homework on that. This ain't the video to address that. So I'm gonna run through these because I said enough. President Trump promised to Black America over 4 years increase access to capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion. Now he is a businessman and he has been known to keep his word. You know, be careful what news you tune into. You know, you got to do your own research. Don't just look at one channel. Look at multiple and do your own digging so you can make your own decisions. Because so many people are just basing it on what somebody else said. Their mama said this. He racist because it is. So, you know, they just basing it off of emotion. Get out of the emotion. But he's a businessman. So, you know, he has had a track record for keeping his word on certain things. So $500 billion in access to capital over the next 4 years. Let's talk about it. All right. So there's 3 million new jobs for Black communities, creating 500,000 new Black-owned businesses, increase access to capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion, which I stated, safe urban neighborhoods with highest policy standards, commit to working on the Second Step Act, which they already did. They're just talking about furthering it to the next level. Access to better education and job training opportunities, which is already in the works I spoke of. Give Black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community. They did something pretty big for a Black church. That's for you to do your own research. And this is something that's already been done. Bring better and tailored health care to address historic disparities. Immigration policies that protect American jobs. That's a whole nother conversation. A lot of people don't understand the importance of the immigration laws and how that affects the working American. That, you know, and who's standing for America in this fight. That's a whole nother conversation. Do your homework. I just say that. Do your homework. Don't listen to me, but I'm just here to read and also give my insight. And then advance home ownership opportunities and enhance financial literacy in the Black community. I'm a part of enhancing Black financial literacy in the Black community. You know, me and my wife, we've been teaching for years, but whatever else is incorporated, great. So we all have to do our part in that area. This is not for us to leave up to anybody else. I will say that you have to be doing your own digging. You have to do your own searching, reading, investing in yourself, because it costs money. If you spending money on something that ain't adding value to you, it's time out for all of that entertainment. I don't do a whole lot of entertaining myself. I watch certain things, but 9 times out of 10, my wife will tell you, if we're in the car, I'm like, I don't feel like being entertained. Let me play something that's on my watch later list or something that I said I was going to play, because I don't have a lot of time, so I need to be learning and creating something that can allow me to better our family as a whole, but pour into those who I'm speaking to. So it's time out for a whole lot of entertaining. So I said that to say, as it relates to this, you got to do your own homework and take responsibility versus relying on somebody else to teach you financial literacy. Even though it's in the plan, you still need to be doing your own due diligence, because a person can slap you with a book and you still might not read it. All right, last but not least, onshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for Black-owned businesses. Now, I don't know much about that, but that's the platinum plan. Now, you can go over it, and if I was able to put it right here, then you're reading it right there. But if not, no big deal. I found this just in a quick search, and it just lays out the plan. Because most of the time when people talk about what they're going to do for us, a lot of times they don't have a plan in place in order to do it, or a track record that says they've done it. Most of the time they're just trying to pitch you something nice that sounds good because it's time for them to receive your vote. They just want your vote so bad, so they try to appeal to you at that time. I don't think he's necessarily begging for our vote, because he didn't even take a salary as far as I know, in terms of being a president. So certain things that he's doing on his own, and he is not playing by many of the rules that they wanted him to play by. And typically that's how we operate as a people, as blacks. We don't necessarily, we feel like we're pretty much, we're people who know we're connected to the higher source. We know that we're powerful beyond belief. So rules and guidelines don't just fit into our DNA, because we know that we are God-like. We know that we're abundant in general. And if we tap into that, then we understand the freedom that comes from it. So naturally we operate, or would like to operate, from a place that has little to no restrictions, because we respect people who respect us. But that's, pretty much how it goes. So just kind of do your own due diligence in terms of research. These are the things that are in place, but you gotta weigh out both options. And when I weigh out both options of who's done what historically, it's kind of a no-brainer to me from a presidential standpoint. But now it's time for me to get astute in areas, especially in my area, of what other areas do I need to vote for from a district attorney standpoint, the judges, all of the different places that are being ran for. They need to be held under the same magnifying glass that the presidents are being held under, because it's a lot of times the locals that get swept under the rug. And when you as an individual have to deal with a certain scenario, it's not based on the president. The president might get the blame. It's based on some of the localities that you didn't vote for. So get astute in those areas. Just wanted to line out the Black plan, but talk about things that may already be in the works, because many people say that this is being done just to get our vote right now. But some of this stuff was already in the works, and I just knew that just due to me doing my own research, because I said I was not just going to be voting just based on emotion. And I'm getting my answers every day. And I hope you do the same. That's all I got. Tell me how you feel about this video. What you feel about the plan. Are you doing your research? What research have you come across? Were you surprised at some of the research that you found? If you truly did your research. Because if you comment below and I ask you something and you don't know how to answer it, that means you ain't did your research on both sides. You see, research means you're researching both sides, and then you're making an educated decision based on your morals, principles, and what you want, not emotion, or not just looking for the negative in either party and just trying to find what fits what it is you want to believe. Because that's what many people do. They do that with religion and everything else. They do research looking for what they want to believe. And every time they find it, they highlight it like, yep, I told you. But they ain't weigh out both options. No, research means you're looking at both. You're comparing, you're looking, you're judging. You say, you know what? This fits me as an individual. This fits my morals. And of these two candidates or two parties or these scenarios, this is what I think gonna get us closer to where we're trying to go. May not get us all the way there. It ain't gonna be a perfect. Nobody's perfect. And this is something I was telling my wife. A lot of times people looking for this perfect individual, this perfect leader, this perfect president. Look, if you still trying to please everybody, then that's a problem. First and foremost. Then secondly, most of the time we as people don't like all of the decisions that we made for our own self. Most people got some decisions that they made that they like, I probably shouldn't have did that. So how in the world are you going to expect somebody else like a president to decide on things that fit what you agree 100%? So weigh out the options, determine what works best for you and your family and your morals and your principles. If you have any, hopefully you do. Comment below and let me know what you think. Salute. Talk soon.